So, Jan, you are going to introduce the agenda of this afternoon, and then thank you and good luck for all of the closing sessions. Thank you very much for joining us and to participate here to this closing session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christophe. It's an absolute honor to be here on stage for InfraBIM closing plenary. And as Christophe already introduced, I'm Jan Saar. I'm from the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications in Estonia, head of digital construction there. That's my day job, but also involved with Building Smart as one of the board of director members. And I'm also in the EU BIM task group. And yeah, we have a great program for you for today to end this great event that we've had here in Lyon. It's been wonderful. I really am sorry for all those who couldn't be here on site. You missed a lot, especially everything that was happening outside of the conference rooms, which is why it's always nice to be on site here. But we will first of all have an introduction and a welcome from a good colleague of mine, Suhail Subra, and he should be online with us. Suhail, can you hear us?
Yes, Jan, I can hear you well.
It's great to hear your voice. Hopefully they can also see your video in just a few moments. And I'm now handing over the floor to you, Suhail, to make a proper introduction for this closing plenary.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you very much. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you okay, at least here in the conference room in Lyon. Everybody can hear you, everybody's happy and smiling behind their masks.
Great. Okay, thank you. So, welcome everybody to this closing session of InfraBIM 2022. As Jan said, I'm Suhail Subra, I'm chair of the EU BIM task group, and I'm head of the IT department at CSTB. It's a real pleasure to see you all here. First of all, I want to thank you for your presence, and also special thanks for Building Smart France and the organizing committee for this successful event that was handled in a very unusual context, of course. I'm very sorry I cannot join you on site today. I understand what Jan is saying. Basically, all the important stuff are happening on site. Nevertheless, I'm happy to give this introduction, and I will benefit from this hybrid presence that was handled. I will not use any slides, just to be on the safe side. I don't want to do anything crazy, right? So I just will do the introduction that way. So, more seriously, during the last 2 days, we've heard a lot of interesting things. And coming from all over the world, it was really wonderful. Indeed, I think we all agree that digital transition benefits the entire construction life cycle, and that the overall challenge is to find the economic and business case for a digital, low carbon, and resilient construction sector. That's basically our challenge. However, we also know that the transformation cannot be done by businesses in isolation. Indeed, the importance of the construction sector is, of course, due to its huge economic impact, but it is also due to the fact that it sits at the crossroads of different economic sectors which make up the construction value chain. We can talk about the supply chain, the product manufacturing, infrastructures, real estate, housing, transport, urban development, and so on and so forth. So the issues that we will tackle this afternoon is around these, and we will dig deeper into that. They will be structured around two main topics. The first one is about frameworks supporting digital technologies. Indeed, we all know that full-scale digitalization needs to be supported by a large scale of technologies. We can talk about BIM, CDEs, digital twins, Internet of Things, 3D printing, prefabrication, artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth. there's a lot of hanging questions. What are the main obstacles for a wider spread of these technologies? What is the role of standards and OpenBIM in particular? And what are the barriers for adoption? What are the main triggers that we need to use in order to bring SMEs on board, which is a main challenge. So these are some of the questions that we will be addressing. The second topic is about data governance and digital open platforms. Again, we need to foster the availability of data to be used in the economy by increasing trust in data providers and by strengthening data sharing. But again, we have a lot of challenges. How to deal with government to business data sharing for the public interests. What is the role of public authorities and public clients in the implementation of BIM and ultimately in using, in maximizing the value for BIM and for public money? And how to adopt fully digital and BIM-enabled building permitting processes. How to secure the benefits of data sharing without jeopardizing data generators and their IP rights. So a lot of interesting topics that we will be addressing in this closing session this afternoon. So this session will be composed of three main parts. We will start with the survey reports coming from TC442 and Building Smart International. Then we are very happy to welcome our keynote speaker, Electra Papadaki from DG GROW at the European Commission. And finally, we will move to the roundtable discussion with feedbacks coming from national BIM deployment in Sweden, Denmark, Estonia, Italy, Finland, France, and with special focus on projects like DigiPlace and GaiaX, followed by a roundtable discussion with the panelists. So for this discussion, you are, of course, invited to ask your questions to the panelists. If you are on site, obviously, you raise your hand and you do so. Otherwise, if you are online, please use Brella to do so, and we will take the questions and deal with them during the session. So thank you again for your participation. Now I hand over to Jan Saar, who is on site. Jan, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Suhail. Very clear introduction. So as you heard, we have a great program in store for you today. And with that, I think we should get going as quick as possible because time is always sometimes on our side, sometimes opposed us. But I hope we have Thomas Jensen from Norway online with us. Can you hear me, Thomas?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Great, we can hear you. And we have the slides for your presentation here on the computer. And I understand we also have here on site Dominique Chevalier and from the French Federation of Infrastructure Construction Companies. And I understand, Thomas, you and Dominique will be doing the presentation together. So I'll hand over the mic to Dominique here so he can help you in changing the slides and you can have a dialogue with him. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you, Suhail. So, Thomas, you can start.
Oh, thank you very much. I want to start by thanking the organizers of the IBO for giving us the opportunity to show off the work that we have been doing for a while now. First, public recognition of the work that we have been doing so far outside the TC442. I think we can start the presentation.
It is started. Don't you have it on your laptop?
I don't. And that's kind of that's a weird situation. What slide are we looking at? Yeah, now I can see it. The technical committee 442 has been established in 2015 and has currently 34 member countries participating in the standardization work. It is structured, as you see on the screen, in working groups. Currently, there are 9 active working groups, of which 6 are producing standards or technical reports on and yeah, doing the practical work. There are a couple of standards that the audience may be familiar with that have their origin in the TC 442 and some are, oh yeah, no, I can see. About the data dictionaries, the framework for classification. We have contributed to the work regarding 19650 under the Vienna Agreement, and of course many, many more. The level of information needs standard comes to mind. We listed the, oh yeah. This figure is meant to illustrate that there are liaisons and agreements between different domain standardization bodies to encourage involvement from the relevant experts. Next, please. The very fact that WG6 exists breaks a bit with the principle of the general understanding that information is to be managed and exchanged across domains. Should never be solely applied to infrastructure or the building sector. And what is infrastructure anyway, is a question we got asked many times. And how is it different from other building or construction projects, or how are the assets in the operational phase different in infrastructure? What constitutes the difference, really? And do these differences discourage the implementation of BIM standards that are developed by CEN and ISO? In order to find some answers to these questions and to lure infrastructure specialists into the standardization world, the WG6 was created. Currently, the mission brief looks like this. There's the work we are supposed to do. We are supposed to identify key stakeholders in the infrastructure industry, investigate existing activities like the development of IFC 4.3, formulate the need for standardization related to implementation of BIM in infrastructure. Based on the identified differences between infrastructure and other construction projects, is there a need for further standardization really? And if so, we are supposed to make recommendations on what is to be standardized and in what way. And the final product will be a technical report. Once this report is produced and published, the working group will be dissolved. If there's not another working item that we would like to work with in the future. The technical report, being a work in progress, has at this time the following structure. We have studied the life cycle stages of a generic infrastructure asset, the stakeholder that we are about to present later, stakeholder engagement in general, current initiatives, examples of information requirements for infrastructure and the specification of use of information. Classification is the topic, standards for security based on the security-minded approach described in part 5 of the 19650 series. And we are about to give input to a guide that is developed in parallel. Recommendations would be the last thing to do for us. This structure has evolved and keeps evolving as we learn new facts and change our understanding of the state of development and the understanding of information management across Europe in the infrastructure industry. Next, please. Currently, we have 41 registered experts from 16 countries in our working group. And we are supposed to deliver our final draft, if you will, in about 6 weeks' time. After which it will go on a hearing within the technical committee, and any comments are to be handled afterwards, before the technical report will go on to be published in April 23. If anybody in the audience wants to contribute to the work in the working group, you're very welcome to do so. It's not too late. And in order to do so, you would need to contact your national standardization organization and get you registered for the work in WG6. This would be everything from me for now.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Thank you for the explanation of why WJ6 and quite original structure. One of the goals of it was to check and propose new modification of BIM standards to infrastructure. So this is the reason why almost 2 years ago, that was just before March 2020, it was found out that we should prepare a survey to send to all stakeholders that were seen throughout Europe and to see how they saw BIM standardization toward infrastructure. So it was sent to very numerous people. We got, let's say it, only 158 answers and 118 only are relevant. So we are almost 118 in the room today. So I believe that all of you have answered to this survey, and probably most of you have not even known about this survey. Still, even if it's on 118, it's the largest that was ever done on standardization for infrastructure in Europe, in different cases here. So this survey is neither exhaustive, it does not want to be conclusive, it needs to give some conclusion. And here I need to remind you of the famous sentence which was pronounced by Churchill, who said, "I only believe in statistics which I doctored myself." So of course all statistics are to be taken with great caution, and here we're going to give you some results about them. So we have shared into three big parts. The first one is the clients, the infrastructure owners. So we have 25% of 118 which are present on different types of infrastructure. You have the list here. Concerning the designers, the consulting companies, it's above 1/3 here, and it's mainly on road and rail, which is quite typical and funny to see that clients are evenly distributed and designers are mainly road and rail. And it's mainly on big jobs. I remember talking very shortly during lunch with somebody who told me, and Suel, you've talked about it, what about SMEs? What about small businesses? And that's a concern. So we have done the same with the contractors, the contracting companies, to whom personally I do answer and do give my responsibility. So it's almost 1/3 as well, and it's almost mainly on road and rail. So designers and contractors are mainly road, they are mainly rail, and they are both oriented on large and very large projects. So how come? This is a question we will have to solve. So in short, you have all the figures here. We even had, what's important is to see here that we have software vendors, we had manufacturers of cement, concrete and so on, and other, minor is not the word, they're not important, it's just that there were very little to answer to this. And you can see here all the distribution of different businesses. We had even 8% export, 6% water network, and some bridges. So very wide range, but mainly road and rails. Okay, so that's, I don't ask you to read the figures you have here on the table, on the pivot table on the left. We found something pretty funny, is that first questions were simple. First question was, the fifth question was, BIM was a contractual requirement. And there we had 100% answers, which is quite nice. Okay, question 5, everybody went down to question 5. That's nice. Still, it's not very positive when you think about was it relevant or not. Was it in the contractual requirement? When we talk about contractors, we were 50-50. which is not a nice result. It was not a contractual requirement. Whereas for engineering companies, we were closer to 75%. So in many cases, people will use BIM without it being in the contract. And what's funny, though, is that when we came to the next question, 6, we introduced a weird figure, 19,650. I think nobody in the room have heard this figure, ever. Of course, you all know about it, but as soon as we have ISO 19650, we have 50% of answers. People left these questions. And what's funny, though, when you go down to question 11 and 12, they answer back, so they didn't leave the survey. They just didn't know about 19650. And that's a very big question to us. So we have some answers, some figures here. So the contractors were happy with it, only for 39%, whereas when we talk about designers, we are more on 65%. So the bigger the projects are, the more yes we have. So that's, I revert to the previous question I was asking, is how about SMEs? How about small jobs? How do we do with it? How do we cope with it? So the third question, we went on with things being more accurate. So we have slightly the same, roughly the same figures. And people answering to this question are mainly happy with the standards. They use international or national standards. They use them, they know about them, and that's interesting to know. People who don't know about them will not answer, but some are wizards, standard wizards, and that's quite nice. And here you have road massively answered yes. I mean, we're happy using national standards, and train was 2/3, so it's quite massive as well. When we went on, and this one is quite interesting on another aspect, we all know that BIM is not only a 3D model. Of course, we know that. And as soon as we see that for the people entering the same 58%, then we see, you see the figures here of 25, 24. So people who know about standards, they know about CDE, the same figures. So they are not using 3D models only. They are using the full range of data that are available on a BIM model and BIM management system. So that's important. What about the 44 other %? That's difficult to know. So in short words, we have on one side real players. They are big players working on big projects, and they know about real BIM. We don't know yet if they are very happy with it, but they know about the capacity of it. And we have mainly beginners for smaller businesses or for small projects. And they need to learn, and they are not using standard. They might, and I heard that in the UK while we were discussing with Thomas one day, is we heard that they were doing BIM for themselves, which is, okay, it's nice, it brings something to the company, but it doesn't bring the full potential of what BIM can be. So we need to bring up all these companies, all these projects to the level if we have the standards for it. So I won't detail all the questions. Just to remember, we had at the beginning 180 questions, which was crazy. We went down to 43. I'm not going to go through all the 43. We are just figuring out the main figures here. So we went to a good definition of responsibilities, and there we were back to 81% of answers. So people came back to answering. They did not get rid of it, so they were interested in the survey. And here we don't find any difference between rail and road, and 63% of them were happy, sorry about that, 60 were happy on the question, okay, when they had the project, responsibilities were clearly defined. That is quite important. So we need to see that on the BIM, on the BEP itself, and on the CDE. So here we have the same BIM execution plan. Was it required when bidding for the design? So same rate of answers. And then we went to much lower level. So BEP, BIM execution plan, was not required for the bidding, which is included in the 19650 ISO standard. So people will use it, but they don't ask, they No, they won't judge the competitors on their ability to work. Is it really relevant what they're proposing as the BIM execution plan? Then we went on to the next one is, was it prepared at the start of the contract? And here we're back to the same figures, a quite high level. So we know that BEP are written when we write the contract. Unfortunately, it would be interesting to compare the capacity of every company. So we have it, okay, some like it, they like it standard, they use normalization, they would standardization. But most of it just is non-standard. Oh, sorry, I missed the none. It was too late yesterday when I wrote that. Last set of questions, question 32. Were the BIM standards very suitable for the project? What's important here is that we see that 2/3 of the people will not answer. They don't even know if the BIM standards were suitable. When they know, they are quite happy with it. So here we have the client, and here we have the contractors. So we can see here that when they are happy, they're quite happy, or very unhappy, but most of them will not know what's going on. So preliminary conclusions, we can go on to that, is we need to have the standard spending finished. We know about IFC 4.3, which is not published, but it's implementing into the companies, which is quite nice. But there are other standards. And second point is that guidance documents do not appear to be quite clear. So there's a need to implement them with the 19650. Their guidance are not clear. And for all the correspondence between GIS and BIM, as well as OGC. And last point, which is very important, is train teams. So we need to give elements on this for training teams. So now I wish to present you an initiative we have done with FNTP. We have a very short video, if you wish, if you could. Yeah, there's a video.
No.
There's no video?
There's the video, which is...
No, it's filled. You have to load the film presentation.
Okay, so I understand Dominic had prepared a video as well, but this we will leave for some time later, and we will move on because we are really short on time. Yeah, that's the one. And but if anybody has questions for Dominic regarding the TC442 study in the room here, please raise your hand. We can take like maybe one quick question. Because I was looking at Barella and there were no questions just a minute ago. So, no hands. Okay, so thank you, Dominique. It was very clear presentation. So obviously everybody understood it very well. Yeah, thank you. And also thank you to Thomas, who's online with us and present here in Hart. But now, our schedule is quite packed. So next, you already saw a sneak preview of Phil Jackson on the screen. And Phil, can you hear us? Are you with us?
I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. We can hear you as well, Phil. So I would now like to hand the floor over to you. I have your presentation open here in front of me. I will change the slides as per your request. So the floor is yours. Take it away, Phil.
Thank you very much. So I just want to do a brief look through what is a smaller survey than the CC 442 survey. And just to introduce myself, I'm Phil Jackson. I'm part of the Building Smart International Infra Room. Also lecture in BIM at the University of Surrey and run a consultancy on strategic BIM here in the UK, but actually work across Europe. So I'm going to look at briefly why we did our survey and what the results were and some of the conclusions we've drawn and what we're doing about those conclusions. So over the past 3 to 4 years, Building Smart International has broadened its scope of IFC and all the work around it to encompass what I call the linear and continuous world. So we're taking ourselves beyond the building, beyond the Lego and the regular grid, to infrastructure, environment, and civil engineering. And any number of people and organizations, and thanks to them, have put those resources together to actually come up with a conclusion which is taking Building Smart and Open BIM a long way forward. So we've successfully steered projects that include roads, bridges, tunnels, ports and harbours, and work with the railways room to expand the scope of Open BIM. And these projects are now approaching fruition and incorporated into IFC 4.3 and surrounding work. And that will be published as ISO standard during 2022. And hopefully will actually lay a foundation for moving more of infrastructure into this standard way of doing BIM. So next slide. So, but what we have realized that looking at the roadmap, and I've been responsible for the roadmap for the past 3 to 4 years, I'm now handing it over to others. There's still a lot to do, and we found ourselves very much at a crossroads. We'd done a lot, but we needed to refresh our roadmap to see the way ahead and to understand how we expand the scope of IFC to include more infrastructure and that continuous world that I spoke of, and to face up to current issues and open them up for discussion, and to work with the technical teams in Building Smart and others to incorporate their innovations and to represent infrastructure and their interests. And to do this, we have published a white paper of what we think the issues might be. I meant to put a link in here. If you want to actually ask me afterwards, I'll give you the link to that white paper, but also conducted a survey of industry needs. Next slide. So what we did was issued a survey, which we did to ensure that we remained relevant, to listen to industry users and to communicate the roadmap that we currently had and get industry response, and to get direction and tune our activities and then build on that success we have already. So next slide. And I'm not going to go into the depths of the summary. We received something like 40 to 50 responses. I can't remember exactly what, but it wasn't as deep as we'd liked, but we got those responses. It's certainly not as much as the 442 survey. And we actually, I've collated them into where they came from. Interestingly enough, a significant amount from Germany. An awful lot from design, which I think is quite common, and much less with the agencies and those that actually consume the results of what we build and construct. Next slide. So what we found, and I'm not going to go into the detail of the survey, but what we found was it's really difficult to reach the wide industry we serve. And I think our previous speaker actually said, no, we cover such a wide base with so many different interested parties. But we did actually discover there are some priorities that IFC needs to include beyond where we currently are and beyond where we're currently programmed to be. But we also discovered that the softer aspects of the roadmap were extremely important. We needed clarity in the BSI message to industry to ensure consistency of the message and to draw that together, address asset owners, because although we do have some asset owners that really have taken this on board, there are many that haven't, to make it relevant to current technical staff and to avoid techno speak. One of the dangers of our standards and one of the dangers we found is that if you're really into this stuff, you can become very deep and actually start to talk a language that no one understands. But actually we need to be able to talk to the wider industry. And we found that there's a need for more education and more white papers and more discussion of issues with the people who actually are faced up with the results of BIM and how to use BIM, rather than actually all the technical intricacies of modeling. Next slide. And so I'll just take some relevant quotes from the survey, because actually I think this was perhaps some of the more interesting parts of what we found. So next slide. So there's a greater need for basic education of building smart standards and how they work together. For example, what is BSDD? Show some practical examples. Make the other BSI standards which are out there more coherent and more user-friendly and more suitable for end users in a practical way. This was a repeated set of comments, and actually comments I hear more and more when I talk to those that are in industry using the results of the standards that we've actually thus far produced. Next slide. So our conclusions are we should do more to understand the needs and requirements, bring IFC 4.3 to implementation. We're very proud of where we've got to with that, but it needs to be to implementation. Investigate a top priority list of new IFCs that might need either investigating, but give education and production white papers a priority, looking at the wider perspective, explaining to industry, communicating an engineer, owner, asset manager, financial accountants and project level at a less techie level, and listen to future subjects and invite authors to bring those papers together and to work with the technical room to make the tools and message consistent from there forward. Next slide. So where next? We are proud of our progress that's been made. We do believe we've actually taken, from the regular grid to the continuous very successfully over the last years, but we realize there's a lot to do. Our subject is broad and it impacts so many different parts of the industry and different parts of the social infrastructure that we actually build the assets for. And we can only focus on taking things forward step by step. So, however, we need to increase our knowledge of priorities. And to do that, we've decided we want to get closer to the industry, and we're embarking on a series of local chapter facilitated workshops. So we're supporting these to show what IFC 4.3 can do, to understand better the areas where we need to work, and to understand the specific issues and local needs so that we can feed that into the roadmap. Next slide. So those local workshops are designed to get closer to industry and users and how important we realize that is. And we can't do this with surveys. We've found that surveys will only reach a certain knowledgeable set of people or interested set of people, and we believed that. So this local workshop we're promoting, and we're providing templates and agendas and platforms to do that, but encouraging local chapters to reach out to industry players to actually bring that together, and then we will report back on those. And in fact, we have to date held a very successful workshop in Germany with very interesting results, with wide range of people contributing. There's one programmed for Finland this month or early next month, and we have some planned for Italy and more in the planning. But what we want to do is reach out and say, if you're interested, if your local chapters are interested to take part in these and take part in this feedback, then contact the info room, and I've given you a contact name there to go. So just next slide. So that pretty well sums up our survey, which was certainly junior to the 442 one, but I think it found some very similar conclusions and what we're trying to do about it and how we're trying to reach into to the local needs and understand how we develop that roadmap. But most important, I think, is how we can start to educate the users of all the information that BIM actually creates and makes available and is supported by our standards. So it's the practical application of our standards. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. As you can hear from the applause in the audience, it was very clear and understandable. And I was so captivated by your slides. At one point, I forgot to push the next slide button. But I will try and yeah. Yes, but now I have one quick question for you, Phil, from Brella. Yanis is asking, what's your prediction on when IFC 4.3 will be supported in major design software solutions? How do you reply to that?
One of the things we have done with 4.3 is worked alongside the software developers. And so there are a number of software developers who are on board with 4.3. And they are actually looking at the implementation alongside its introduction. So I do believe that actually that 4.3 is released as a standard, as an ISO standard, we will find that some of the major software vendors will have at least understood what is needed and started to incorporate. Of course, they've got a program to develop their software to meet the needs, but we have very much tried to take them alongside, and they have very much been involved and are involved in creating the MVDs for what is needed in the reference models and those sorts of things. So I'm very encouraged with that they will be doing that. And I think it's up to us who want to have those standards to work alongside them and tell them, this is what we want to do. And if they're sensible, they will understand that actually, they can never cover the whole industry, but actually if we can do open standards, then they can find their niche within those standards to develop what they are really good at.
Okay, thank you, Phil. That was a very thorough answer. But alas, we have to move on now to our next presentation, so we're kind of traveling virtually around Europe here. So hopefully we have connected to Marian Schenkwein in Finland and also Marc Pignot in Switzerland. Are you there, Marian and Marc?
Yes, I'm here.
Great.
Yes, good afternoon.
Great to hear you guys. Welcome. You're here and at the closing plenary. Again, I will be your on-site extension. I have your slides here in front of me, but the floor, both audio and video, is now yours. So please, who's going to go first, Marian or Marc?
Marian is doing the presentation.
Please, Marian, the floor is yours. Go ahead. Just tell me when to push next. I hope your slides are not too interesting, otherwise I'll forget. And if I'm not pushing next, just remind me again. Thank you.
Okay, so there are only 4 slides, like Marc said, but yeah. So thank you for the possibility for us to present our work from 2 years ago. So Marc and I had a presentation at InfraBIM Open 2020 in Tampere. And quite long title was benchmarking current status, expectations and goals at BIM utilization at railways in the Nordics and Central Europe. So yeah, please, the next slide. And a little bit of the background. Back then, Marc and I began actually the background work for this presentation 2019. I think it probably was August or something. And the approach was quite different from these 2 surveys that we heard of before. Next, please. So if you compare these surveys, so you can see that we had 11 interviewees from 12 countries, and our interviews, they were one-to-one and with selected experts of the railway domain and people that we already knew are quite involved in implementation of BIM in one way or another. So it's actually not that it makes not so much sense to compare the results in a broader sense with these two other surveys. And there are these themes that we covered in the interview. We interviewed each and every one of these 12 persons for 1 hour or 1.5. And based on those results, we had some key findings. Next, please. So maybe, Mark, you can continue from here.
Oh, okay, yes, of course. Thanks. Sorry. Yeah, we have some conclusions. We found that there is a huge workload in the industry, in the rail industry, really to go ahead, often driven by large projects and their leaders. And there is a strong need for an appropriate BIM system and tool for cost-effective work. So really to work together for the rail industry, all have often the same problems and the same needs. That's a system approach. The open standard IFC rail we found as crucial, and it will be supported by the railways within Europe, which we have interviewed. So, and the most important are the people, still the people. We need motivated and well-trained employees. This other speaker told this as well. The people has to understand what is needed, what is BIM, how this data management works. So the really conclusions are we need collaboration within the industry and the commitment of the big infrastructure owner. They have the money, they have the project, and the operators for a common open BIM and open data strategy. And we should rely and use our international network more. So from global goals with a local flavor, as it was mentioned, to go to the people within the regions or the companies to bring that together. So that was our contribution, kind of a review of our interviews some years, 2 years ago already. Thank you. So I will, yep, Mariam, please, sorry.
Yeah, as you can see, there are quite many elements that have been touched in the previous presentations as well. For example, what Phil just said about having the local chapters actively involved in the training and other activities to get the feedback also from the community on the local level and utilize the global networks also here.
Thank you, Marian and Mark. So very well delivered. I think the message is clear. More collaboration. So thanks again. And since we are running very short on time in this session, and Marian, you will be also in our discussion panel later on, I will hold off most of the questions, maybe one question if somebody wants to go real quick. No, okay. So we save the questions for the discussion panel and the roundtable in the end. But now, thank you again, guys. I hope, Marian, to see you again soon in our discussions. But I would now like to hand over to our next presenter. And I've been just informed that we have the video Dominic mentioned he has prepared for you, and it would be very sad if we wouldn't be able to show it to you guys. So we're going to do it now. So brace yourself. You're going to see a video start real soon.
Découvrons ensemble la formation Passeport TP-BIM 2.0 de la FNTP. Le contexte dans lequel cette formation a été créée, les bénéfices qu'il y a à la suivre, les publics auxquels elle s'adresse. Le contexte. L'apparition et le développement des technologies numériques a changé de nombreux aspects de notre quotidien, comme l'audiovisuel et la musique, avec le streaming de programmes, ou la mobilité douce, avec notamment les trottinettes partagées via smartphone. Et il en va de même pour les travaux publics. Au-delà des maquettes numériques, on peut par exemple réaliser des relevés de réseau pour disposer de plans de recollement fiables et rapides, partager des informations via le cloud pour fluidifier les échanges, utiliser des outils de travail collaboratifs pour disposer des informations en temps réel. Nous avons créé Passeport TP-BIM 2.0 pour vous permettre de tirer profit du potentiel du numérique sur vos chantiers. Car pour agir, il faut comprendre les avantages. S'approprier le numérique est avant tout un levier de performance pour les chantiers. Maîtriser les nouveaux outils digitaux permet d'améliorer la productivité et la qualité de vos projets. Les publics concernés. Ce cursus gratuit est ouvert à tous. Donneurs d'ordre, salariés, étudiants. Il s'adresse à vous quelle que soit votre maîtrise actuelle des outils numériques. Le cursus propose 6 formations différentes pour coller au mieux à vos besoins. À vous de jouer. Inscrivez-vous dès à présent. Rendez-vous sur TP Demain pour découvrir votre formation, décrochez votre passeport TP BIM 2.0 et entrez dans la révolution numérique en cours sur les chantiers de travaux publics.
Okay, so that was the video for you guys. And yeah, I need to practice my French, obviously, more. Je ne parle pas français, very good. but I'm trying. Yes, but that's okay. Now, moving on in our virtual tour of Europe, I hope that we have online next Electra Papadaki, our friend in the European Commission. And Electra, are you there?
Yes, I am here. I hope you can see me and that you can hear me.
We can hear you perfectly. It's always so exciting when I ask the question, are you there? And then I'm waiting. Yes. And, but we hear you, and we will, the audience here will see you as well in just a few short moments. I have your presentation open here on the laptop as well. And I'm ready and waiting for your commands, Electra, to change the slides. And I managed the last session without sleeping through any of the slides. So I hope to continue the good work. So the floor is yours, Electra, and let me know when to change the slides. Okay?
Thank you very much, Jan, and great to see you even virtually. We hoped all of us to meet at this point in time, but in any case, I'm very glad that we're having this discussion, and I really hope that everybody is well and start the year healthy, at least. I'm Electra Papadaki. I'm responsible for construction and built environment policies in the European Commission, and I will try to bring a little bit all of these different exciting topics together with a perspective of what we do in the European Commission and how we are trying to hear all different opinions, consolidate all different initiatives, and at this point in time, design a future with a vision to 2030. In the next slide, a small mention to the importance of construction as an industrial ecosystem. DG Grow, the Director General where I work for, deals with everything that has to do with industry and services, and construction is the sector, is the industrial ecosystem that in economic terms is always featuring in the top 2, 3 of all industrial ecosystems, being responsible for a big part of the EU GDP, of the output in the EU, but also being the employer of many people, of 3.1 million businesses, most of them being SMEs and micro enterprises. Now, next slide, please. Yes. So a big sector, an important sector, but as we say in Greece, the big boats are made for big storms, unfortunately, and this goes also in the context of the pandemic that shook a lot of industrial ecosystems and construction as well. We're discussing a lot about its resilience in general, the resilience of the value chains, the supply of materials right now, and all of this just adds up to an already challenging situation for construction that comes from the digital transformation, of course, that is happening in very quick terms, but also the climate crisis. And there comes the industrial strategy, the guiding strategy for all of us for construction and the other industrial sectors that gave us a task to shape basically a transition pathway for the construction ecosystem with vision towards 2030 in order to make it more resilient, more digital, more green. During autumn of 2021, we held a lot of discussions, and many of you might be familiar, maybe you participated already, to understand a little bit what are the critical challenges, what are the opportunities, what is going on already in European country or industrial level or research level, and what we should do for the future. Based on that, we published in the 15th of December a staff working document with the title Scenarios for the Transition Pathway for a Resilient, Green and Digital Construction Ecosystem, with our views on all of this, together with your views, the consolidation that we could offer. And this document is open for consultation, for ideas, for your feedback. The link is available, and I really hope it is diffused, and I really hope you participate. So I'm going to take this opportunity to present to you the digital chapter of all of this, that is of relevance, that covers all of these topics that Suhail also mentioned in his introduction, permits and others, BIM, and let you know what are the critical points that we have identified and where you could have your input. Next slide, please. Perfect. So what is the digital transformation of the construction ecosystem? I think that if we go a little bit back in 2016, 2017, we can maybe all remember that the digital transformation was a little bit of a scary story in a sector like construction. Back then we had some very famous reports that were ranking the digital transformation score of different sectors. And there we had construction very low, and maybe still the sector suffers a bit from its image. It's considered that it's not the most high-tech one. It's not considered maybe always that is the one that makes the most out of digital technologies and tools. However, we should put the digitalization in the space that it belongs. It shouldn't be the vision on its own, but a means to achieve a better built environment for the planet and for the people. And digitalization can be transformative to the whole ecosystem of construction and solve a lot of the other challenges that the ecosystem is facing. It can be the bridge between different scales of the built environment. We can pass from data on construction material to data that can be useful for the building of infrastructure. It can also be a bridge between different professionals and users. We can see how digitalization enables a connection from the vision of an architect up to the construction site and the facility management even. And of course, and very importantly, digitalization can enable transparency and trust and improve the decision making in construction. And there, of course, we come to work on spreading better BIM in public procurement, in digitalizing public services and others. As part of this exercise that I mentioned, we tried to group and analyze the different types of initiatives that we see in policy in EU and member state level. And if Jan could kindly pass in the next slide, you can see that the big first area that we identified is, of course, no surprise, digital platforms. digital platforms have a very broad definition, and we see that in some cases they can be educational platforms, they can be platforms that allow industry to connect or allow flow of data between industry and government. It can be places of connection and networking and debate as well. It is a big definition, but I think that it helped us a lot to get into a consensus and a better understanding, all of us, all this community that is dealing with digitalization of construction, the project under Horizon 2020 DigiPlace that I think that many of you are aware of. And this project delivered recommendations in a very critical moment when we have also discussions about the Data Act in EU level that is coming now to arrange better and in more ethical ways all this exchange of data that happen. And of course, the announcement for a future data space for construction or data spaces in public procurement and other European data spaces that will come and try to help what is already going on in individual member state level or in industrial level or any. Next, apart from that, we saw that another area of I hope you see me. I see different strange things in the screen, but I'm going to continue in any case.
We saw you just
In
a
the
moment
next
ago,
slide.
but please go ahead, Electra. We can hear you and we can
Yes.
see the slides. So go ahead.
Thank you, Jan. Perfect. So if you can move to the next, I can maybe cover. Perfect. So yes, as I said, the importance of governments is big, and they can really play a role when we are talking about digitalization of construction. And something that we saw, and well, Jan is really the expert to that, and he's there with you. But something that the pandemic really showed is the power of digitalization when we're speaking about building permits. So when everything was closed, public administrations around Europe were closed, and of course they couldn't issue permits, they couldn't move a lot of administrative tasks that are linked to building and interventions in the built environment. And there the power of government in services and government platforms was shown, even by its absence. As part of the national recovery plans, the Commission worked with the Member States and recommended them to take this into account and try to digitalize their permit systems, try to require building information modeling when they are procuring for construction. And for that, all of the work that we have done with the EU BIMTAS group was really showed again its value as we were able to speak with member states that maybe they are not as advanced and give them high-level advice, but also give them tools such as the handbook for the calculation of costs and benefits in order to advance on BIM adoption. And in addition to this, Horizon Europe also included dedicated calls, especially on digital permits and of course enabled with BIM and automatic checks. And the latest information I have is that the community responded to that, and that we will be able to fund some very interesting projects ahead, and that will take these concepts further, and they will be able to inform policy making. And from our side, we are ready also to again work with member states if needed, and give them the guidance that they might require. I think there are two more areas in the next slide. Perfect. Another area very close to my heart is the use of digital tools for the organization and sharing of information for buildings. Sometimes we're speaking about lack of data, but this can also mean lack of digitalization of information or lack of centralization of data, or even in the area of buildings, data needs to be recreated again and again. The European certificate for energy performance already was a very important step into um, creating the habit of organizing information about a single building, and in addition to that come also the building logbooks, the digital building logbooks, some cases called digital building passports, as common repositories for all relevant building data. And in many cases across the EU, these tools are linked also with permits, are linked with funds for innovation and others. This is a concept that we are exploring. There are already a lot of digital building logbook type initiatives across the EU in different member states, in different regions. Sometimes they are industry-led. And right now we are preparing for a technical study that will deliver technical guidelines to member states for the implementation of building logbooks, as our planning shows, by 2024. And on the same time, again, Horizon Europe is funding research efforts in order to experiment further with logbooks, and particularly into seeing how logbooks can be relevant for industry. And lastly, of course, any effort on collaboration is very important. Here we are exchanging views, and I think this has enormous value for policy and future initiatives. And this is part of the spirit behind the clusters and the European Cluster Collaboration Platform that has a long history of helping networks and partners, and the same goes for digital innovation hubs as part of the Digital Europe program. So these are a little bit the different types of initiatives we have mapped that we find crucial for the digital transformation. But as I said, all of this is an exercise, a co-creation exercise. So again, think of, consider seriously to participate in the online consultation and all the work we are doing with the transition pathways, because it is really the time to discuss all this. I think in the next slide we can see a little bit more of I want to use this slide to provoke you. These are on the left, we see the challenges as we map them, of course with the help of a lot of stakeholders, and the vision of what we see that could be, what we can realize by 2030. So all these initiatives also indicate what is lacking, and we see as the three main problems of digitalization of construction right now: the limited data availability, sharing and use, the fact that data is often lost and needs to be recreated. We see also slow and paper-based administrative processes that challenge productivity and again indicate reuse, recreation of data, and of course they don't allow reuse of data. And lastly, we see that the low digitalization rates are also a result of lack of investment in construction enterprises and mostly SMEs, and that certain companies and people cannot participate in this digital transition. From our side, we see as part of our policies that it would be important that the European data space for construction is put in place, and that could enable new business models in construction. We see that the setup of digital building logbooks and databases on energy performance of buildings could increase data availability and sharing, and this could be of value to the industry. We hope that the work on BIM and on digital building permits advances, and by 2030 we can see almost all member states fully digitalized in these areas. And lastly, in terms of SMEs, we plan to continue the work with digital innovation hubs, clusters and technology centers, and look closer into the current share of construction companies investing in innovation. Again, this is our mapping, this is our understanding, and please, I think you can pass to the last slide, Jan, and my message is, first of all, I want to thank you for all this very interesting presentation of all the knowledge that you consolidated in this event. It's very valuable for policy making, but even more valuable is the active participation from all of you. I hope all of these ideas that were put forward in this event and beyond can feed into this process, because it's really a moment to look into the future of construction. After the initial phase of digitalization, we can now pass to a more mature stage. And I hope to see all of you in the future in events and see your names in the organizations in our consultations. Feel free to reach me by mail or through social media. And that will be all from my side.
Thank you, Electra. That was a very clear presentation, and I'm happy to see the European Commission has such a great person as you representing our industry and fighting for us to make sure that on the European level our topics are there, the digitalization of construction, BIM, etc., open BIM, all of these keywords were in your presentation already, and I'm very happy to see that. Are there questions for Electra? I urge you all in the, yes, already I see one hand raised, and this is from your colleague actually.
No, not really. Hi, I would like to know whether you're aware of the projects for whether there has been an uptake for the National Recovery Plan of Italy in terms of simplification of renewable projects and infrastructure projects, because we all know that this is one of the issues and choking points in terms of deployment of renewables. And how are you working as the Commission together with the Ministry of Ecological Transition in Italy, if at all?
Yes. Thank you for your question. Unfortunately, I can only see you from the back, but okay. So, as you may know, the different member states submitted several rounds of drafts of their national recovery plans to the Commission, and we gave our feedback. Not only us in DG GROW, not only construction, but it is a whole mechanism of colleagues that was mobilized in order to react to the different proposals of the member states. Beyond that, we are following the different national recovery plans. They are 27, so I cannot recall Italy right now, but we are monitoring all the measures that are taken that are linked to construction, that can affect construction. And this means, of course, green construction, circular economy construction, energy efficiency construction. And we are giving feedback to the countries in a very regular basis. The countries have to also fulfill many requirements that are set in terms of digitalization, in terms of climate resilience, in order to activate all of these funds.
Thank you, Electra. Any more questions for Electra? The people here in the audience are very shy. But your message was very clear. So I'm checking Brella. There are currently no questions on Brella either, but I'm sure Suhail has a question for you. So I'm going to give the chance for Suhail as well to ask a question from you, Electra. Suhail, can you hear us? This was not rehearsed, so I'm surprising Suhail here. I saw Suhail made a comment in Brella, so he was there just a moment ago. But actually, I would like to ask myself a question from you, Electra, as well. This high-level construction forum, I understand there's a paper going to be published, a plan of action of some sort. Do you have any dates you can share with us when that might happen?
Yes, so already in the 15th of December, we published the scenarios. The consultation on the scenarios will be open until end of February. We will consolidate all the input during March, and we will come back to the high-level forum for further discussions in April. The final product of all this exercise will be the transition pathway for the construction ecosystem that you can imagine as a small strategy or roadmap for the sector. And our current timeline is end of June.
Okay, so by the summer we will have another great summary, a plan, a document with the European Commission stamp on it that we can use to help us in this digitalization transformation journey, right?
Exactly.
Okay, but thank you again, Electra. Your presentation was very good, and we are now moving on with our program for the final cherry on top of InfraBIM Open, and for this we're going to have a roundtable. And for this roundtable, I'm going to give the technical team a little bit time to prepare to get everybody together. We're going to have in this roundtable lots of people from around Europe. So again, it's going to be very international. We have Marion from Finland, Rasmus from Denmark, Karin from Sweden, Semeraro from Italy, Eric Olinger from France, right here, but online as well, Claudio online from Italy, and later on at 4 o'clock, we hope Marine de Sury will also join us from Gaia X. But I'm going to wait for feedback from our technical team. So if we can get everybody on screen, that would be great. But that's going to take a little bit of time. The plan for the roundtable is that I'm going to give a little bit, a few minutes, 3 minutes to be more exact, for everybody to kind of summarize their discussion on national BIM deployment that they did during the conference here in various other sessions. And also for DigiPlace and GaiaX to do a quick recap of what they're doing. And then we're going to go into some questions. Again, there will be a chance to ask questions from all of them, an open mic. Of course, it's going to be, our panelists are all online, so we never know how well this will turn out. But we're hoping for the best, that the connections are stable, the latency is low, and we can have a really, really good discussion ongoing. But let me do a quick check. So I hope to hear from our panelists whether or not they're online. Marian, are you there? Next one, always an exciting moment. Rasmus, Denmark, are you there?
Yes.
Ah, perfect. We have Rasmus online with us. Great to hear you. Next one, Karin from Sweden.
Yes, I'm here from Stockholm.
Oh, great to have you online connecting to us from Stockholm. Next one, Semeraro from Italy.
Good afternoon, I'm here.
Yeah, so actually your first name is Francesco, right? I have it here,
Yes.
vice versa, so sorry about that. Francesco from Italy is here.
Don't worry.
Great to have you here, thanks. Yeah, all the panelists, please, if you have the possibility at all, please turn on your camera. We would love to see you all, and we'll try to arrange so everybody's on screen. And don't worry if you didn't have time to dress up or make your hair. That's fine. We are all used to it. Online meetings, you know, crazy things have happened in the past few years. I'm doubtful you will be able to surprise us with anything. But moving on, Eric from France, are you there?
Yes, I'm here from Paris. Sorry not to be with you physically in Lyon, but I have another commitment in Paris just after. Thank you.
Excellent. So we have capital of France also online. Claudio, what about which part of Italy are you from?
I'm from Milan, so I'm here and ready from Milan.
All right, the fashion capital also online. And all right, as I said, Marine de Sury will join us later, so I'm not going to ask whether or not she's online now. Hopefully she will be there at about 4 o'clock. But now going back to Marion again, to the cold northern country of Finland. neighboring country to Estonia. Wonderful place to visit, home of Santa Claus. Marion, are you there?
I'm here, yeah.
Oh, perfect. Great to hear you. Tervetuloa. And actually, Finland, as you know, is the home of InfraBIM as well, the event. So it's always been there in Tampere with nice cold weather. So it seems we have all our panelists online now. And I will moderate the discussion. Again, I'm hoping you guys here in the room, you guys watching online, Umbrella, will also participate, take the opportunity to be interactive in this session and ask our great panelists some questions. But to kick it off, I would now like to do the 3-minute introduction sessions, starting with, drum roll, Rasmus, please. You're the first one. So because Marion just recently. Well, it seems we know Christoph's preference at least. So Marion, please. Christoph has asked for you to go first. Please give a quick recap. 3 minutes. I will be timing you. So go ahead.
Okay. I don't know if I should thank Christoph or not. Anyways, 3 minutes recap from the Finnish national BIM deployment. Well, I would say, first of all, InfraBIM is very tightly woven into the FTIA strategic statements, and it's seen as an integrated part of the processes in all projects and like serving multiple needs and creating value for the stakeholders. And we see InfraBIM as a tool for improved asset management also by connecting project and maintenance phases. So I think this is quite a hot topic for many of us at the moment. FTIA is acting as a driving force in InfraBIM development on an international level and together with other Nordic public infrastructure clients. We have also set some goals to reach a certain BIM maturity level by 2025 and are really working hard to achieve these goals. And also we have set quite high goals for the digital twin of the transport network, and we are aiming to create a digital and virtual copy of the physical infrastructure, including fitness condition and forecast models. Yeah, we want to use the full potential of the digital model and the digital twin in infrastructure maintenance and traffic management processes. And we see that it's crucial to reach this is the coverage and the quality of the data. So the data has to meet the requirements of the utilization of the digital model and the digital twin. Yeah, so we want also to make the digital model and the digital twin of the transport network available, so it can be utilized in all network asset management purposes. And we are working a lot with open data, and a lot of data is available online at the moment already. And yes, so that's a 3-minute recap from Finland.
Excellent. Well done, Marion. Right on time. Next up, Christoph, do you have a preference, or shall I go with Rasmus? Rasmus, please, floor is yours. 3 minutes, starting now.
Yeah, thank you very much. BIM has a strategic focus at all the larger client infrastructure owners in Denmark, and we want to expand the use of BIM, especially during design and construction. We are working after the principles of a step-by-step digital transformation, aiming for that holistic digitalization rather than the standalone solutions. Due to the complexity of the technology that's being used and the dynamic surroundings, it is quite impossible for us to paint the full picture, BIM picture of where we are going. So we want to use real-life projects to create good practice and based on that, continuously developing both the BIM picture and improving the way we are using these digital tools as well. So together, the infrastructure owners, we have joined forces, and we want to define the future way of working with these the BIM, and we want to challenge the market as well to move up these BIM stairs as we are talking about. So together we are working within 4 domains. We are together setting the strategic direction for where we want to go, trying to involve the industry as well. Each organization has a lot of infrastructure projects, which some of them we use for testing new BIM initiatives. We do it based on a common BIM framework so that we can collect the results, and then we use the results to qualify them with the industry to make sure that they are broadly accepted. And we have a client coordinated implementation phase as well, so that we together can change the market. We have started these tests and harvested the first experiences from this, and we think it makes a good way of working together with the suppliers to create new solutions, and it also makes it possible for the suppliers as well to prepare for the new BIM demands that we are working on and that we anticipate for the future as well. So we hope together that we, by joining forces, can make a national accepted approach for the next or the next year to come, and try to improve our BIM maturity as we go on. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rasmus. Perfectly on time. Just quickly also mention, Rasmus, which organization you are representing, because I don't think you mentioned it before.
No, sorry, I'm representing the Danish Road Directorate into this, and together with the other client organization, we represent what we call BIM Infra DK, which is the client organization here, but I'm from the Danish Road Directorate.
Okay, perfect. And Marian is kind of your colleague from Finland with similar organization, transport administration, as far as I understand. Okay, Karin, your 3 minutes of starting now, please.
Okay. Thank you, Jan. Yes, I then represent the Swedish road administration, Road and Railway Administration, Trafikverket. I'm not going to do a summary in a similar way as Rasmus and Marian. I would like to tell you a little bit about the great achievements we've done during last year and where we think we are going and heading now. We've been working with a few development projects where we are trying to get the construction and the investment phase to be able to hand over to asset management. And the maturity level in the asset management division has been quite low, and they have not really been ready to receive the models that we've been developing during the construction phases. So that project is going to end at the middle of this year, and we've achieved some really good results. You will have heard some of that in the presentation from Anna earlier today, but we also have some good goals for this year. So we are testing how to transfer the data from our existing models to the IFC that we have been part of developing and we know quite well by now. And we are testing this in the transfer to the management systems such as Batman, a system where we manage our bridges, to the lighting system where we have all our street lightings. And we've done some fairly good tests using some of the technology that we've been looking into in the last few years, among others in the CEDAR project, which is the Road Authority's European research organization. And so we're trying to now collect everything that we've been doing for the last 10 years. We're trying to get it all to some kind of result and not just shelf warming reports. So that's really something that we're looking forward to be able to reporting at the end of this year, the result of this. And the asset management department has now said, yes, we want your models, help us, teach us how to get the best use out of it. So that's really the best results we've had in many years. Be able to start that dialogue and yeah.
Well, sounds
That's
great.
all I have to say, really.
Hopefully, we can elaborate on that a bit more in the discussion. But thank you, Karen. Francesco, your 3 minutes from Italy. Yeah, I'm getting information from. Ah, Eric.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear somebody. I'm not sure who, but Christoph was saying he has a preference that Eric goes first now. Yes, Eric.
I can go first on or wait for Francesco as you
Eric,
wish.
You're already on screen. You've already had 1.5 minutes running, so you have 1 minute 20 seconds left. Okay, I'm just kidding. 3 minutes, Eric. Go ahead.
Okay,
What's
I'll be
happening
quick.
in France regarding BIM?
So I'm from the French Road Directorate, just as the Finnish and Danish colleagues. Well, the situation in France is not as developed as in the Nordics. That's clear, but we have started to gather good experience on infrastructure BIM since 2017, where we had our first big project, which was actually a metro line that is now under construction in the Greater Paris region. We also have some front runners among motorway concessionaires in France who have experienced infra-BIM on interchange or motorway widening projects. Their feedback is quite good. They show that BIM actually simplifies discussions between technical experts from different backgrounds, earthworks, pavement, bridges, sanitation, and so on. That it also helps to avoid geometrical conflicts at earlier exchange and therefore to avoid extra costs discovered during construction. So at the moment, our policy for the National Road Network is to consider that in calls for tenders for design of road projects, we consider BIM really as an added value in a bid. It's not a contractual requirement, but it's really something that is considered as a plus when we build a new contract with a design. Thank you. And I'm happy also to give you the feedback from our infrastructure owners in France and what they actually need to get on board.
Yes, that's something we hope to, again, elaborate on the later discussion. Thank you, Eric. And now, Francesco, the floor is yours for maximum of 3 minutes. Less is also good.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Francesco, and I'm a civil engineer from the BIM management unit of ANAS. And we basically represent the Italian public client in the design, construction, and maintenance of national roads and motorways. Well, BIM in Italy is mandatory for public works since 2019, and with project costs over 100 million euros, and with gradually lower thresholds in the following years until 2025, where BIM will be mandatory for every public work. However, compared to the original roadmap, in August 2021, the government postponed the mandatory threshold by 1 year, mainly due to the criticalities as a result of the pandemic, which is currently underway, and excluded from the list of mandatory works two typologies: maintenance, ordinary maintenance works, and works with a cost lower than 1 million euro. Well, from what we see in Italy and from some surveys in the construction market revealed a constant increase in the use of BIM as a voluntary request in public tenders over the last 4 years, demonstrating a good level of adoption by the most important contracting authorities in Italy, mainly infrastructures and state property. A different scenario is what we see for the majority of public tenders, which are performed by medium and small contracting authorities. And I'm talking about municipalities and regions. What I can say is that it's certainly possible that 2022 will represent a strong impact both for ANAS and for many other Italian contracting authority in the use of BIM due to the high number of projects that will fall into the mandatory threshold, which is set for this year at 15 million euros. So we have great expectation for this year in a widespread use of BIM. I'm really positive about that. So thank you.
Thank you, Francesco. We are perfectly on time, and I'm happy to say that everybody has been on time so far. But now I will hand it over to Claudio to give his 3 minutes to explain what is DigiPlace. I know, Claudio, this is not an easy task, but nevertheless, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, it's not easy to explain a big project like DigiPlace in 3 minutes, but I would try to do my best on this direction. So what is DigiPlace? So DigiPlace is an H2020 project that was developed with a specific aims, that is the one about developing what is called a reference architecture framework for the future platforms in the construction sector. And this is the main objective of the project. Around this objective, I have to say that we can summarize 3 main results that we obtained in the project, a project that has been handed in May 2021. And the 3 results are, of course, the reference architecture framework, that is a set of guidelines that we developed and that contains specification for the developments of platforms in the construction sector. The second one is a strategic roadmap that has been developed for the implementation of the strategic roadmap in the countries, in the EU countries. And the third one is the DigiPlace ecosystem that has been created in the project itself. That means that we collected around the table all the main stakeholders or representative of the stakeholder as partners of the project, or through the 2 bodies that have been created in the project, that are the advisory board and the community of stakeholders. So this is the overview of the project. One thing that I have to say is that being a European project and the coordination and support action, the main results of the project are completely free and available. So we will publish soon all the deliverables, so everyone can look at the reference architecture framework, at the roadmap, and all the analysis that have been developed in the project.
Okay. Frank, thank you. Claudio, that was really good. Next time I will ask you to summarize it in 1 sentence, and after that it's going to be just 1 word to see how you manage that. That was very well done. And yeah, now we also have Estonia on the panel. So I will represent Estonia. I'll try to keep it under 15 minutes with my summary. No, but I'll do it short. In Estonia, we don't have any mandate for BIM. No government mandate yet, but nonetheless, we are using more kind of a nudging approach. So we are talking with the public clients. We are actively working together with them to develop a BIM standard that is based on open BIM that all public clients can use. We have a lot of public clients who already mandate themselves in their contracts the use of BIM, IFC, open BIM, state real estate, for example. Also in infrastructure, our road administration has done piloting, and this BIM standard I'm talking about is actually going to be both houses and infrastructure. So it brings them together, and we work on a classification system to also help the industry to adopt and to use better the data they already have. And from the government side, we have an e-construction platform which ties together the data and services. So not just only talking about BIM, but looking more holistically, more broadly. And what else on the infrastructure side? Oh, okay. One thing to mention is the building permits, we have fully digital already, the process, but we are converting that into a BIM-based process. Of course, first step is for houses, but after that, we've already done tests for infrastructure as well to see how we can do automated checks against clash detections on utility networks, for example, and that's going to be a really quick jump from houses to infrastructure, I think, in the coming years. So, okay, I stuck to my own time limit for now, but all right, let's get the discussion going. I have a few preset questions here that I want to go to, and before we go back to the public clients, actually, Claudio, I want to give a chance to you to explain a little bit more on what you mean by a digital platform, because we're talking about these digital platforms. You can decipher that in many ways. You can think about it as a software solution, you can think about it as a framework. What, in the context of DigiPlace, is a digital platform for the construction sector? What are we talking about here?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think that this is a good question and, of course, a complex one. And it was one of the topics that has been discussed many times during the advisory board of the project and during the discussion between partners. Let's say that the results of this discussion is that at a certain point we agreed on a definition of platform that is the following one that I will read to you. That can be used as a starting point, in my opinion, for the identification of what is a platform for the construction sector. And in this case, the definition that we agreed on is that it is an operating system that enables to plug in services and to give access to data with the possibility to connect to other platforms, tools, or application via APIs. So the point is that we identified this concept of digital platform as an operating system that does not live alone, but it's able to connect and to share services. It is able to connect with other platforms to create what is a digital ecosystem for the construction sector, avoiding the creation of a multitude of islands or platforms that repeat and that requires to recreate every time the data, to recreate every time the services, but on the other side, that is able to share the services at the different levels that we have.
So
I hope that this can answer to the question.
Yeah, just to reiterate, so essentially the DigiPlace or a digital platform is kind of like a mediator between other services and platforms to make sure that we can exchange data from one place to another without losses. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Yeah, this is one point. Let's say that, just to be precise, is that DigiPlace is not a platform itself. So DigiPlace is the project that identified the reference architecture framework. The objective is in the future to use the results of DigiPlace for the development of platforms at the different levels, including the mediator that you were defining, for coordination development at European level for platforms for the construction sector in the different countries. Yeah.
Okay, so DigiPlace is kind of the guideline or the principles
Exactly.
on according to which will help us create platforms that can in the future exchange data between each other in Europe and maybe globally.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, so I have you on the back screen, so I always have to look, you know, to see you, I have to look away from you, from your point of view. Okay, but all right, to the audience, please, if you want to elaborate, if something's not clear, raise your hand. We have microphones. We have the means to get your question and I'll pass it on. But until you gather your thoughts, and of course, if you are shy, you can ask your question through Brella, even if you are here sitting in the audience. You don't have to speak out. But I would now like to go back to Karen and taking, you know, the thought of the digital platforms. But before that, I would like to understand from the Nordic perspective why OpenBIM is so widely used there. How would you summarize the real benefits in your organization that OpenBIM has shown?
Well, I have to start by saying it's very much my own thoughts, although we share them at Trafikverket. But I represent very much the construction phase and this part of the process. But what we have been looking forward to now, and why we have put so much effort and our money and our resources into lately, is the development of OpenBIM and IFC. We see it as being an important part of being in charge of our requirements. For so many years, we've been in the hands of the CAD software developers and the people doing the design. And we haven't set the requirements to match our own requirements fully. So now we have the opportunity of being in charge of our requirements and letting the market compete on other things than clever CAD design. And I hope this is going to be, to hopefully change the way we, the cost, and I hope it will, we're hoping it will have a larger impact on the whole industry. So being in charge of our requirements, basically.
Okay. Okay, good. And you mentioned already these software platforms as such. I get the feeling you're not that big of a fan of these proprietary software platforms.
Well, no, and I think, I mean, I've been doing road design since the since the 80s, and they're the software that we've been sort of having to go to, and in the Nordics we've also had NovaPoint, and they're all very good tools and very good parametric design, but they haven't really developed much the last 30 years, I suppose, and to be able to get development, we need more software solutions, we need more transparency in the processes, basically. And I think having an open format to give us more possible, a bigger flora of tools, I think is important.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's not a critique of any particular software solution. It's just the question that we need better interoperability between different softwares, and open formats are a means to achieve that. But I saw already a hand in the audience, or was that just, yes, perfect. So I'm going to hand over the mic for a second.
Thank you. I have a question related to the one of the first presentation about the survey, and saying that the norm ISO 19650 was not actually really used. And how do you see to use this tool, which is explaining how to collaborate on a project, and why are we not using it more as a prescription on our project?
Okay. Can you, Karen, answer that, or shall I direct it to someone else?
I can't really answer that particular question, but I think applying BIM methodology and processes in our old methodologies, like the framework we have for contracts and the framework we have for all the agreements with whoever is working for us. I think this is where 19650 is going to be really important, helping us have clear contracts and contractual agreements.
Since we have Dominic here, actually, maybe do you want to elaborate on that question as well, since you are presenting the survey results?
Thank you, Jan. I don't think it was stated that it was not used. It was stated that for big players, some of them use it, and small players barely ever use it because they don't know about it. And the job is how to get them understanding what's in it through guidance and maybe simplification, I don't know. It's bringing the knowledge to smaller businesses.
Okay, thank you, Dominic, for jumping in like that. But sticking with the northern part of Europe, I would now like to ask Marian a question. Specifically, now this is very specific towards Finland. You have been using your own classification system, Inframodel, for some time in Northern Europe, Finland. But I understand you are now focusing more on IFC. Is there a particular reason for that? Can you elaborate?
Yes, yeah. It's true, we have been using Inframodel for quite a while already. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's Inframodel is a LandXML based file transfer format. It's a Finnish extension to the LandXML. And yes, it has been serving us quite well for a while, but it misses the possibilities to describe very detailed infrastructure assets. And also it misses some possibilities to populate them with like really rich information. And as you heard also in my opening 3 minutes, this is actually really what we need in order to use this data and these objects that are created in design and construction for them to serve also the needs of asset management and other functions. And yeah, we see that the implementation of IFC 4.3 with a really like massive contribution to the infrastructure, it enables infrastructure owners like the Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency that we finally get a better hold of our data and that we are able to use it also in a more intelligent way.
So you mentioned getting better hold of your data. Does that mean you've had issues with IP rights as well?
Well, actually, yes. There is not so much of a question about IP rights about the design of, well, let's say a bridge or so, because FTIA as the customer, we always own the results, the design as defined in the contract. But what we have had some questions about recently is that the FTIA contract documents, they include the requirement that in addition to the open BIM data, the designers must also hand over the native models. And this is usually not a problem in like the standard design solutions, but lately we have faced some situations where the design has been done using parametric design and really complex mathematical models in the background. And so in these cases, the question would be, what is the native model and can it be handed over to us without compromising the business secrets of the designer?
Thank you, Marian. That's actually a very interesting topic about the IP rights and how it's kind of transitioning now as we bring more and more parametric modeling into the scene, how the IP is going from the model into kind of these algorithms. But yeah, if we have time, we can elaborate a bit further on that. But I just got word that Marine Desiree has joined our panel as well. She's from Gaia X. Marine, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Perfect. We can hear
Can
you.
hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. And as everybody else had already their 3 minutes of quick recap, I'm sure a lot of people here maybe have not heard of Gaia X so much. So give us the elevator pitch, Marine. What is Gaia X?
Okay. In less than 3 minutes, then
Yes.
a quick summary about GaiaX. So GaiaX, European Association for Data and Cloud, is an international non-profit association created by its 22 French and German founding members, which are companies, associations, and academies. But today, GaiaX is a European association with more than 320 members. And GaiaX is business-driven initiative, which is completely aligned with the European data strategy published in February 2020. So GaiaX ambition is to promote the free circulation of data within a trusted and secure digital ecosystem by proposing an infrastructure and architecture based on the following key foundations: interoperability of clouds, transparency of contracts, openness to competition, trust, reversibility of infrastructure, portability of applications and services, data protection, and energy efficiency. So GaiaX has two ambitions. The first one is to establish a framework of trust, so respectful of European values and legislation, and then therefore to translate technically these values in policy rules, labels, and an architecture framework. So this is the first ambition, and the second ambition is to enable services, use cases to emerge in a trusted framework in an open digital ecosystem in which data can be made available, collected, pooled and shared in a secure and trusted manner that provides analytical, computational and AI capabilities and fosters innovation. So regarding the second ambition, I'm here today because I'm convinced that GaiaX represents an opportunity for the infrastructure and construction sector, and the hubs, and for example, the French GaiaX hub is ready to help you to work on this opportunity. There are about 20 GaiaX hubs in Europe, and the main objective of the GaiaX hubs is to incubate European data space with a significant impact on the national and on the European economy.
Okay, that was
That's for the recap.
that was 3 minutes. So that was great. I would maybe like to ask you right away, how does GaiaX relate to the construction industry? And how can it help in the design, construction, and maintenance of infrastructure assets?
So, as I said, in fact, GaiaX objective is to liberate data in a secure and trusted manner that provide analytical, computational, and AI capabilities and fosters innovation. That is why I invite you to initiate, I invite the domain to initiate the reflection within the infrastructure and construction industry. So the GaiaX hubs can support this reflection at a national level by bringing together stakeholders, by structuring meeting and exchanges. And what happens, because we are incubing 12 working group, and at the beginning the stakeholders come just to make sure that they don't miss something, but quite quickly they come because they have seen what they can get from sharing data in such a secure and trusted ecosystem. So how does it work There was an example this morning about smart manufacturing, but it's exactly the same for the construction and infrastructure industry. It begins with some collective intelligence, during which you identify common interests, potential synergies, pain points to work on. And when the vision of what such an ecosystem can do for this domain, they identify use cases to make data an accelerator in this domain and to answer to the challenges issue. And then the working group will work to go from think tank to the do tank and implement the use cases. At the beginning, it's the quick wins to make sure that it's working. And we begin at the national level to gain maturity, to make sure that the stakeholders, it's easier sometimes when it's new to talk the mother tongue. And then we work at the European level. For example, today within the 12 working group incubating in the hub France, in fact, 10 are working at the European level. So there is just another specific point which I'm sure will interest your sector, because when we say that Gaia-X is a network collaboration infrastructure, secured, open and trusted, there is a question, it's how is it possible to check the level of security, the level of trust? And to answer this critical question, Gaia-X Association announced the creation of labels that will characterize the offers that will be included in the Gaia-X service catalog. And the purpose of the labels is to provide a high and unprecedented level of trust in digital platforms. So, in fact, Gaia-X labels will enable users...
Marine, sorry, I have to... I have to cut you off because I think we're going maybe a little bit too much into detail regarding Gaia-X, and we are slowly running out of time. But I'm sure everybody can check up more on Gaia-X on the website. But I would now like to go back to maybe more familiar territory to our audience. And Rasmus, I understand that you guys are collecting a lot of BIM data during the design construction phase. But how do you use that data in asset management? What are the kind of main challenges you see there?
Yeah, and that's a very good question. And first of all, we have this enriched digital models that we want to hand over to asset management. We also have a asset management system that are also digital, GIS based, and optimized for doing asset management during the last 20 years or so. So of course we have some sort of clash between the two different silos, I should say. But first of all, I think we may are asking the wrong question here. Instead, I think it should be how asset management can use the data, the BIM approach, into making better decisions about the asset management. So there will be a lot of information collected during the design and construction phases that are not necessary in the asset management model. So I think we have to ask ourselves instead and look at the asset management to see which information do we need for asset management and how do we get this into a BIM context. Then the next problem will be to look how can we improve the asset management by using the BIM approach, collecting more information, having access to data. And then of course, be aware if we have it in our asset management system, then we need to maintain the data as well to make it reliable. So there's a big, there's a balance between how many information can we pass on into the systems and how do we maintain them. So for example, if we look at the objects above the surface with the scanning technology, is it more easier to maintain the data or collect it when we have to do some renewal? That's some of the interesting questions. But of course, if you need it for your ongoing asset management, there will be information that can be improved. What we said is that going on through our maturity model, we have to have some basic elements in place first, and that's why we are focusing on the design and construction phases. In our asset management department, they are of course also aware of the digitalization and are looking at and we have just or we are in the process of procuring a new asset management system as well. So we will start out with the talk about what information is needed at this point, and then of course it has to be followed up to see how we can address a more BIM-oriented asset management.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The question should be, what does asset management need from BIM? And in Estonia, for example, we have a really good public client who did exactly that. The Port of Tallinn was one of these clients that when they started defining their BIM requirements for their tenders, they really looked at from the end of the building life cycle and started working their way back to see, okay, how are we going to use BIM data in asset management? What do we need? How will it improve the longevity and the maintenance of our assets? And I think that's really key as well in that case. And I understand, Rasmus, you also have that in plans and you are already working on that to some extent, but at the moment the focus is still on the design construction phase.
But I would also say that it is also an opening for looking into the ISO 19650 series as well, because that addresses the same issues. And in our national collaboration, that's one of the strategic goals for the next period of time, to see how we can address this in the design and construction projects to have a structured delivery of data at the handover phases.
Okay, thank you, Rasmus. Francesco.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, Suhail, yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, sorry, I saw that you couldn't hear me before. So we have a question on BRELA from my good friend Frédéric Grand, who was
excellent.
wondering how the use of dictionaries could impact the requirements and contracts as presented by Marion.
Marion, did you hear the question? That was specifically for you on BRELA.
Could you please repeat it? It was...
Yeah, so Frederick was wondering how the use of dictionaries can change in the future the way we do requirements on contracts. I mean, obviously, it might be easier if you use a standard set of dictionaries in your requirement to address some kind of expectations.
Well, I expect it to make it also for the tendering process easier, because the data dictionaries are going to be openly available, at least from public customers like ourselves. And let's say something turnouts in the railways. One example, you have so many international providers that could be checking the requirements based on a dictionary like this beforehand. So I think it will open the market for international tendering and make it easier to fulfill the information requirements.
Absolutely, thank you.
Very clear and quick answer. Thank you, Marion. It will make it better, was the answer. But I would, with the few remaining minutes we have left, I would still like to give the word also to our colleagues in France and Italy. And I was about to ask, and I would now like to address Francesco a little bit about what kind of obstacle challenges have you encountered in Italy that are hindering the widespread use of digital technologies, and how are public clients looking at OpenBIM? How eager are they to adopt it in Italy? Francesco, we can't hear you. I can hear my echo. Okay, so we're checking, Francesco, if we have a right connection, but do we have Eric? Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Eric, we can hear you. So I reiterate my question more to you, but not looking at kind of the obstacle challenges, but you mentioned that you have feedback from infrastructure owners in France and about the way they're using OpenBIM. Can you please share with us what has this feedback been? I hope it's widely positive.
Mm. Well, as mentioned in my introduction, we have some very good and positive feedback, especially on difficulties that have been avoided. Seeing geometrical issues at earlier stages, and therefore avoiding extra costs in construction when you discover it a bit too late. But on the other hand, there's also the cost of BIM itself. The feedback we have is 1 to 2% extra costs for the implementation on BIM based on the overall cost of the project. And therefore, I think many infrastructure owners are doubtful whether the benefits they will have in terms of cost avoiding during construction is higher than what they get from the higher than the costs they have to cope with the implementation of BIM itself. And I think reassuring them on this is very important, and we are working also on feedback from the frontrunners on this specific point. I think there's also a need to reassure them on the complexity of BIM. Many of them are still doing computer-aided design with a 2D horizontal alignment on which you will design a longitudinal profile, and explaining them that this is actually level 0 of BIM. This is already BIM. Telling them that you don't need to switch from this to level 2 or 3 BIM on one single stage. You can also start small, start with common data environments with level 1, and this can also be a way to reassure them. And the last point is that they need guidance documents. Many of them are a bit not into standards, as much discussed today. We have many standard experts. I'm not a standard expert. Many of our smaller infrastructure owners are not standard experts. So what they need is a simple guidance document to implement BIM into their contracts. I think indeed, as mentioned earlier, data dictionaries are a good way to make that tendering process easier. I think more guidance and not only dry standards is needed to convince these infrastructure owners.
Thank you, Eric. You mentioned frontrunners. Can you give a shout out to these frontrunners in France? Who are they? The public clients, maybe?
Well, mainly motorway concessionaires. We have, for example, Vinci Motorways. We have APRR, which are big motorway companies who are very into BIM already.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think it's always good to promote these companies because they are front runners and they take the load of actually learning and piloting, and that's hard. So whenever we can also emphasize in Estonia, we always try and do that, like with Port of Tallinn, which again is, I think, a really smart and model client in Estonia, especially when it comes to digitization. But Francesco, do we have you back online with us? Sound is not coming through, so I guess we may have lost Francesco in the digital metaverse, as you know it now. Wait, I'm getting feedback. Francesco, can you say something?
Do you hear me?
Yes, Francesco,
Yes.
you have.
Hear me, Yar? Okay.
We hear you. You have emerged from the metaverse. We're glad to have you back.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask you as well, especially about the role of public clients in OpenBIM, and you surely have your own front runners there. What kind of challenges, obstacles have they encountered when they started this journey? I think the metaverse is trying to pull Francesco back in. It seems we have connection issues. Francesco, with you, we can't hear you again. I'm going to give one more chance for our technical team. But yeah, I don't see any nods. So I think it's the metaverse has this time won.
Yeah. Maybe Ian waiting for the resurrection of Francesco from the Matrix. We have something going on Umbrella, so maybe we want to share this. So Karen was wondering what kind of information is really needed to maintain for asset management, because obviously she underlines the fact that maintaining information is a big issue. It has an impact on costs, on reliability of the information, and not to mention the carbon footprint of this information that is maintained. So do we have any ideas about what is the absolutely needed set of information we need to maintain?
Very good question. Is any of our panelists open to take that answer? Just shout out. Don't be shy.
I think I would like Rasmus to see if he's been thinking about it, because this is a question that we are discussing, and it was during Rasmus's last comments I thought of this, that we are looking at it. But
Rasmus.
Yeah, exactly, and I think I was also just addressing the same issue here, because I completely agree that a big information model is only worth its money if it's maintained, and a lot of information out there will need to be remeasured when we, for example, start a new project. So we have to be very clear of the benefits that the information will have, and I don't have an answer to which BIM uses in asset management that will gain the most value. Of course, we have to look at where there are the biggest risks in having those things modeled, and to be able to make decisions based on the information. But I think it has to be, again, a dialogue with the asset managers, trying to find the places where if things goes wrong, you will have the best benefits of having an enlightened decision basis in the data.
I think, Karen, that was a really good question. And from our experience, we always have the principle that you have to have the least amount of data that you need and no more. Especially when we're talking on the government side, we shouldn't be keeping too much data. But how to find out what that data is really about taking it into the wild and making it available, because, and especially making it available through online services, APIs, which we can then measure and analyze and collect statistics to see which data is most used, which data is most asked for, and only through that we can actually identify what is the minimum set of data and what is the most important set of data. So I think it's really crucial to develop these services that make the data available. But yeah, so I see Christoph has, do you have a question or do you have a preference again?
Two things. First one is to answer to this question. We have to take care, asset management is not facility management. In facility management, we need a very small number of information. But for asset management, you need everything, everything. In case of problem, 10 years after, I mean, if you have not all of the information of the construction.
I'll give you my mic quickly.
Yes, I am saying that you have to take care to make difference between facility management and asset management. Facility management, we have to create the use cases, the MVD related to the use cases. Absolutely right, we don't need everything. But in terms of asset management, it's totally different. We need absolutely everything. Because if you have a trouble 10 years after, you need to have not only the information of how it is built, but why it is built like that. That's a question of the handover. It's first handover, you need everything. And then you have to select the information needed for the facility management. That's the reason we are developing in Building Smart all of the stuff around the MVD to be able to extract the right information for the use case relating to facility management. It was my first. Second thing, it was more or less a joke to a joke. I don't know. To Electra and to you and to Swell. That in the report of Electra about BIM, she's using a small logo. It's interesting because a small logo is a small house inside a small box. And I think that is not the case. We are discussing, and it was the case here, of something much more bigger than that, that all of the territory has to be part of the vision of the BIM today. And what is the contents of the IBO is this one.
Thank you, Christoph, for the comment. I must say, I may not agree 100% about that we need to have everything for asset management. I think there's still a limit, but you're absolutely right that there is a difference between asset management and maintenance, and this is a clear point. But, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our panel discussion time, so we have run out of time. I would like to thank all of our panelists for making it through this very demanding session where we have to rely on technology, on digital tools to get us to the end of the day. And luckily we didn't lose anyone besides Francesco to the metaverse, and hopefully Francesco will emerge soon afterwards. But again, a big hand of applause for all of our panelists online. Thank you again. And yeah, it's if I give everybody a chance to say last words, we'll be here till sundown. So if anybody really wants to say anything from our panelists, do it now, shout it out. But you are always, we can always find you online. We have your contacts. Everybody can network. You can use Brella. You can get in touch with them directly. Please do so. And I'm sure, by the way, next year we will meet up again in person in Tampere, hopefully. But now it's time for the conclusion and wrap up. I would like to first hand over the digital microphone to Suhail, who is also there battling the metaverse. Are you there, Suhail? Do you have some final words?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Great, great. Thank you. So first of all, I want to thank everybody for this very interesting session. I'm really enjoying it. It to be honest, it's my first experience as a real hybrid kind of presence. And I think it reveals such very efficient in a way. Of course, it is also due to the attractive way Jan is animating the session. So many thanks to Jan for that. But it also shows how the future of conferences can be. So yeah, maybe we need to be used to this kind of hybrid presence and deal with that in the future. Thanks again for your contribution. It was a very interesting and animated session.
Thank you, Suhail. Yes, and I think the panel discussion we had was centered around a lot about the use of OpenBIM, how public clients are using it, how infrastructure is using it. Yes, there are challenges. Yes, there are costs involved at first, but I think it's clear to everybody here in the room and in the virtual room that there are way more benefits to be had. And we are at kind of, you know, almost at the tipping point where things are really going to take off, especially for infrastructure. And we had examples like DigiPlace, like GaiaX, which are thinking more into the future, more holistically about how to use data, make it interoperable between platforms, between different countries, etc., etc. So I think it was a clear kind of overview of the current state of play in Europe, in many countries, and we also got a little bit of a glimpse of what is the vision or where the future is going. And obviously we have the European Commission, Electra working there with us, helping us, and making sure that things are also happening on the European level, on the European Commission level. So again, I think it was a great panel. It was, yeah, I would have preferred, obviously, to have all the people here, panelists, sitting on these empty chairs, but you know, it's a difficult time, and we're lucky to have this conference happen at all, because it was postponed a couple of times, and I'm really happy to be here. But for the final words, I would now like to hand over to the organizers, who have done a huge job. And even though Christoph already has white hair, I think it got even whiter during the conference, because it was really nerve-wracking to manage all of this. And I think before I hand it over to you, Christoph, it's still, I think, a big round of applause is for you as well for pulling this event off and making it possible and doing it in France and in Leon.
Thank you very much, Jan. So first of all, I want to thank you a lot, because this was really a challenge. It was really a challenge to lead this closing session. We need to say something about that in first, that it was a very big challenge technically to have that in hybrid. So I'm not sure that I am agree with Suhail. I think that I think it could be technical possible, but it's a really great challenge. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we fail. We have to say that today, during the 2 days. But in any case, we have to thanks a lot Frank and all of his team, because sometimes this was very hard. We lose time, but you succeed to maintain the event in hybrid, and thank you so much for that. That is the first word for that. It has to be said. Secondly, I think that we had the support from the Finnish chapter from the very beginning. We appreciate that so much during the 2 years to prepare that. They are always with us for that, for any decision. And we organize together the full program of this event. And what I can say that is that this event was, in terms of content, something because it was the target also because we are working a lot with Karin, people like that, Marion, and so much people in Build Smart to push this standardization process of InfraBIM, and we are very close to a big success. And that what we are discussed during the 2 days was really not on the conceptual level. I like very much the concept, but in this case, we are discussing the concept and how to implement the concept with very key, speech, going in detail of what is going to happen in the very close future about the question of bridge, the question of data dictionary, the question of maintenance. One word about maintenance to answer to Karin, that the works done about classification and data dictionary is a way to answer to this question. Don't make any selection of what it is needed in the BSDD and the data dictionary, to open the option for the facility manager to select what they want. And the job is done around IC 4.3, and IC 4.3 is for BIM now, is also for GIS, and that means that it's opened a lot of doors. I want to say also about infra regarding what it was said by the French representative, that we are already experimented in France with on the big infra. Some element never happen. I mean, I'm speaking with you, Jan, about the question of building application. We have some other example already done. Is a safety audit on site, and to simulate a safety on site. It costs a lot to do that and to not be able to anticipate. But we are able, we have received an award for that 2 years ago or 5 years ago about that, how to operate a safety audit. And we are speaking about human approach, about what BIM could be useful. So we have a lot of examples of, we are not discussing about concept. Concepts are absolutely crucial, but now we are able to apply that. That is a big success, and we appreciate a lot that we are make a very hard selection on speech or presentation to extract the best of the best. So thank you. So that it has to be said. And to conclude that, because I think Frank has to say something, of course, I want to thank Pierre Bening here, which is my brother in arm, all that in mind. Vincent Keller, I repress myself in mind, and is one of the key people in the Rail project. I want to have a thought to Bernard, which is not able to be there, but you have to think about him. He needs that, no more than that. Sorry, no more than that. And of course, the best of the best, Gaston. Oh, she's not here, but everybody knows Gaston. And someone else, Faye. I don't know if you are hearing me. But Faye, you know, no translation, but Faye, I don't know what does it mean in China, but if I say Faye in France, it's the same thing. For something very special, magical to do that. So much for that, and then Frank to conclude.
Thank you very much, Christophe. Yes, please stay on the scene. You can stay on the scene. We can applause again, Christophe, because he's also one of the real key players. Thank you very much. So, Christophe already thanked everyone. I really want to thank all the organizers, all the team here on site, on back office, the people, the translation, everyone. So big thanks to that. I hope you enjoyed to be together. From my side, as you said, some of you, the quality, how deep the relation and the connections and communication face-to-face is something we will never replace in the coming years, I think, even with the best technology. I want to apologize on behalf of all the organization for the people who are watching us remotely for the technical problem we had. But you certainly understood that due to the COVID situation, we had to manage for a lot of people shifting from presence to remote from day to day. So It was really a very, 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 very difficult task to do this hybrid organization. So thanks to the team. Sorry for the problem you have encountered when you watched the streaming. Thank you again for everyone. And well, as next year we will be in Tampere, Kitos.